SLT Mobitel, the connection. SLT Mobitel, the connection.
ලෙන්ගතුකම වැඩි කරගන්න ලව්ජු රුපියල් 50ට අඩු කළා.
මාමේ එන්න අපිට එකක් බොමු.
Cardinal on fire. The Archbishop of Colombo warns corrupt officials involved in the Muthurajavala tourist project to stick to the law or be sent home. Informed decisions. Government says only expert recommendations will determine COVID-19 burial decision.
We can't take political decisions because it is totally depend on expert evidence. So we will wait till the main committee's reports.
Do your part. As schools prepare to reopen, Chief Epidemiologist says responsibility will determine safety.
If the parents, children and the teachers behave very responsibly, we will be able to conduct successfully without introducing COVID-19 into the schools.
Disagreeing with democracy. Pandemonium reigns as US Congress invaded by armed Trump supporters in denial of election defeat. All this and much more coming up tonight on First at 9, this Thursday, the 7th of January, 2021.
ඇල්කොහොල් අඩංගු hand sanitizer භාවිත කරන්න. ලෙඩ රෝග ඇති කරනු විෂ බීජවලට එරෙහිව සටන් කරන්න. හඳුන්වා දීමේ මිල රුපියල් 350යි.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
And a very warm welcome. You're joining us on AdaDerana English. With the COVID-19 burial issue being a key point of public discussion as civil society groups and activists call for a reversal of the government's decision to continue with cremations, the matter was taken up by opposition members in Parliament today. In response to questions raised by MP Gajendra Kumar Ponnambalam, Health Minister Pavitra Vannayarachchi informed the House that government is not prepared to base its forthcoming decision on social, religious or even political reasons. Instead, the final decision will be based on the recommendations of the expert committee currently studying a report submitted by a group of eminent virologists.
දැනට කොවිඩ් රෝගයෙන් මිය යන පුද්ගලයන්ගේ මෘත ශරීර ආදාහනය කිරීම හෝ භූමදානය කිරීම පිළිබඳව නිර්දේශ ලබා දීමට පත් කළ විශේෂඥ කමිටුවේ නිර්දේශය වී තිබෙන්නේ කොරෝනා රෝගයෙන් මිය යන පුද්ගලයන්ගේ මෘත දේහ ආදාහනය කළ යුතු බවයි. එම නිසා එම පැහැදිලි නිර්දේශය අප ක්‍රියාත්මක කරනවා වගේම මෙවැනි භයානක වසංගතයකට මුහුණ දීමේදී එවැනි විශේෂඥ නිර්දේශයන් සමාජීය ආගමික දේශපාලනික හෝ වෙනත් කිසිම පුද්ගලික හේතුවක් නිසාවෙන් වෙනස් නොකරන බවත් කාරුණිකව සඳහන් කරනවා.
I was the one who raised the 27-2 question on the 10th of December. After I raised that question, madam, your ministry has appointed a committee on the 24th of December. It's an expert committee on virologists. A report has come out where it says that you can bury. And in fact, that committee report gives details of how the burials must take place, how funerals must take place, when handling the dead bodies. All of that has come out. So which committee report are you referring to? Because in fact that committee that your ministry appointed on the 24th of December refers to the earlier committee and says that those recommendations from the earlier committee were outdated because those recommendations are given prematurely, whereas now there is much more substantial information. So may I ask you on what basis you give this reply, and also can you please share with us the report that you rely on?
අපේ රාජ්‍ය අමාත්‍ය සුදර්ශනී ප්‍රනාන්දු පුල්ලේ මැතිනියව හමු වෙලා තිබුණා වෛරස් විශේෂඥයින් පිරිසක්. ඒ අයගේ තීරණයක් මා වෙත ලබා දුන්නා. ඒ තීරණය මේ විශේෂඥ අප විසින් පත් කරලා තියෙන මේ ප්‍රධාන කොමිටුවට ඒ තීරණය අපි යොමු කරලා තියෙනවා. ප්‍රධාන කොමිටුවෙන් තාම අපිට වෙනම තීන්දුවක් ආවේ නැහැ.
So you agree that this committee was appointed by your ministry. This committee consists of virologists who are the relevant experts who can actually pronounce announced on this matter, and that it was a subcommittee to the main committee that you refer to, and that you have referred this subcommittee's report to the main committee, but the main committee chooses to ignore the experts. Is that your ministry's response, madam?
විශේෂඥ කමිටුව විසින් මෙය අධ්‍යයනය කිරීමෙන් පස්සේ ඔවුන්ගේ තීරණය අප වෙත ලබා දුන්නම අපි ඒක පිළිගන්නවා.
Committee that was appointed, that means was appointed not by the Honourable Minister of Health, but by the State Minister, if I'm not mistaken, Honourable Fernando Pulle, am I right?
That's not a point of order anyway.
Unofficially, they met Honorable Sudashini Fernando Pulle. So I call a meeting with them and they handed over their decision to me. So I referred that report, that decision to the main committee, and main committee studying this. We can't take political decisions because it is totally depend on expert evidence. So we will wait till the main committee's reports.
Please, Honourable Member, now I think she has explained enough.
Mr. Honourable Ponnambalam, Honourable Minister has answered the question in detail. That she will come back. Surely we are not in court. That she will come back immediately when the decision is made. That is more than enough of an assurance.
I understand the difficulty that the Honourable Minister faces. But from my point of view, I raised a 27-2 question. I have not got an answer. The statement made by the Honourable Minister is simply that a report has been handed over to a main committee and the main committee is deliberating. That is not an answer to my question. I want a date, a firm date.
The assurance has been given by the Honourable Minister that she'll come back and inform Parliament. That is more than enough. You might not get the answer that you want. In the way that you want. Sorry, we differ. We can't be giving answers in the way you want. I think if you want to get a date, we are sitting only again on the 19th. So that week perhaps some announcement could be made.
That is very clear, yes.
While discussions are ongoing for the supply of COVID-19 vaccines and calls are made for a comprehensive vaccine deployment plan be drafted, Minister of Health Pavitra Vanniarachchi also outlined how the government plans to tackle mass inoculations. The minister told Parliament that priority groups, including frontline healthcare workers and other high priority groups such as the armed forces personnel and the elderly, will be given the jab first. Meanwhile, with schools about to reopen, Chief Epidemiologist Dr. Sudath Samaravira urged the public to embrace their responsibilities in order to safeguard students and teachers from the virus risk.
The total number of COVID-19 related deaths in Sri Lanka increased to 222, with 3 more fatalities reported this evening. The deceased are residents of the Gampaha and Kalutara districts. Yesterday, 522 COVID-19 infections were detected from 13 districts across the island. The highest number of infections from this was reported from the Colombo district with 206 cases. With that, 97 infections were reported from Gampaha, 81 from Kalutara, 28 from Galle, 27 from Kurunegala, 24 from Ampara and 17 from Polonnaruwa yesterday. In addition, 13 infections were also reported from Kegalle, 12 from Ratnapura, 7 from Kandy, 5 from Trincomalee, 3 from Jaffna and 1 infection from Hambantota. Meanwhile, with schools located outside the Western Province and isolated areas scheduled to reopen on the 11th of this month, Chief Epidemiologist Dr. Sudath Samaravira says that the only way to protect school children and staff is responsible behavior.
The schools of our country will be beginning very soon with limited classes in Western Province, and in other areas all the grades will be resuming their studies. I think that if the parents as well as children and the teachers, the staff behave very responsibly, we will be able to conduct classes very successfully without introducing COVID-19 into the schools, then to the homes. The most important thing is if somebody, maybe that child, a student, maybe the member of a staff, suffering from COVID-19 like symptoms, for example, fever, cough, cold, sore throat, difficulty in breathing, they should not attend school and should seek medical treatment. If somebody fallen sick in the school, should be isolated from others and seek medical help immediately. And also during traveling to the school should properly wear a mask and should wear all the other instances as much as possible, and also should maintain the hand hygiene with washing with soap and water frequently as much as possible, and also should maintain the distance during traveling to the school and also within the school.
In the meantime, police media spokesperson DIG Ajit Rohana gave an update on the outgoing NAB and test process currently underway against public face mask violators.
මුහුණු ආවරණ නොපළඳින පුද්ගලයන් සම්බන්ධයෙන් මෙහෙයුම ඊයේ දිනේදී බස්නාහිර පළාතේ ක්‍රියාත්මක කරනු ලැබුවා. ඊයේ දිනේදී පුද්ගලයන් 271 දෙනෙක් PCR පරීක්ෂණ සඳහා යොමු කරනු ලැබුවා. රැපිඩ් ඇන්ටිජන් පරීක්ෂණ වලට යොමු කළ 252 දෙනාගෙන් 2 දෙනෙක් කොවිඩ් ආසාදිතයින් බවට හඳුනාගෙන තියෙනවා. පෙරේදා දිනේදී 14ක්, ඊයේ දිනේදී 2ක් ඇතුළුව 16 දෙනෙක් කොවිඩ් ආසාදිතයින් බවට හඳුනාගෙන තියෙනවා.
In another development, Minister of Health Pavitra Vanniyarachchi told Parliament today that priority groups will be prioritized for inoculation once the vaccines are received.
වයස අවුරුදු 18ට අඩු සහ ගර්භණී අයට එන්නත ලබා නොදිය යුතු බවට තාක්ෂණික මතයක් ඇත. සමස්ත ජනගහනයෙන් 35% එම කාණ්ඩයට අයත් වේ. ඒ අනුව එන්නත ලබා දිය යුතු ප්‍රමුඛතා කාණ්ඩ දැනටමත් හඳුනාගෙන ඇත. ඉදිරිපෙළ සෞඛ්‍ය සේවකින් 1,55,000යි ප්‍රතිශතය 0.68යි. ඉදිරිපෙළ ත්‍රිවිධ හමුදා සහ පොලිසිය නිලධාරීන් 1,27,500යි ප්‍රතිශතය සමස්ත ජනගහනයෙන් 0.56යි. අවුරුදු 60ට වැඩි ජනගහනය 31,59,800යි ප්‍රතිශතය 114යි. පිටරට යන සංචාරකයින් විදේශගත ශ්‍රමිකයන් පිරිසිදු කිරීමේ කටයුතුවල නියැලෙන අය සහ අනිකුත් අවදානම් කණ්ඩායම් 2,25,700යි ප්‍රතිශතය 101යි. වයස අවුරුදු 18 සහ 59 අතර අනිකුත් රෝග සහිත වැඩ කරන ජනගහනය 32,27,510යි ප්‍රතිශතය 114.3යි. අවුරුදු 40ත් 59ත් අතර අනිකුත් රෝග නොමැති වැඩ කරන ජනගහනය 31,14,660යි ප්‍රතිශතය 13.8යි. තවද එන්නත් සඳහා ආසියානු සංවර්ධන බැංකුවෙන් ඇමරිකානු ඩොලර් මිලියන 5ක ප්‍රදානයක් ලැබීමටද නියමිතය.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa told senior public servants that policy decisions that affect rural communities must be based on ground realities rather than theory. The president stated this at Temple Trees today when he took up issues faced by the rural farming and dairy communities due to traditional lands being withheld owing to official red tape.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, along with Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, met with state officials at Temple Trees today with the head of the Presidential Task Force on Economic Revival and Poverty Alleviation, Basil Rajapaksa, also in attendance. The meeting was held to brief all government officials of the decisions made by the President following his series of discussions held with villages throughout the country.
මේ අයවැය වින්ගන්නේ ගමේ ගොවිය, දීවරයා, කර්මාන්තකරුවා ගොඩනගා. අයවැය යෝජනාවලියෙන් ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්න විදේශීය විශේෂඥයෝ අපට අවශ්‍ය නැහැ. හැබැයි අමාරු වැඩේ කරන්න වෙන්නේ ඔබට. පොතේ තියෙන දේවලුයි ජනතාව ඉල්ලන දේවලුයි අතර නා විශාල පරතරයක්. අපි මේ තත්ත්වය තේරුම් අරගෙන තියෙනවා. අපිට ඕන කාර්යක්ෂම රටක් උන්වහන්සේලා දන්නවා ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨ අධිකරණයට අලුතෙන්ම විනසුරුවන් 20 දෙනෙක් පසුගියදා ජනාධිපතිතුමා පත් කළා. ඒ පත් කළේ අධිකරණේ ගොඩ ගැහිලා තියෙන විශාල ප්‍රමාණයක් නඩු එක්මනින් විසඳන්න. රටට යුක්තිය ඉටු කරන්න. අපිට ඕන රාජ්‍ය වගේම ආණ්ඩුවක්. ආණ්ඩුව වගේම රාජ්‍යත් වගකීමක් ඇතුව ජනතාවට සේවය කරන තැනකට ගේන්න.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa then addressed the gathering after a question and answer session.
ඇත්තටම අපි ගමකට ගිහිල්ලා ජනතාව එක්ක කතා කරාම ඒ අයගේ මතය එකක්, නිලධාරීන් එක්ක කතා කරාම නිලධාරීන්ගේ මතය තවත් එකක්, කොළඹ අයගේ මතය එකක්. අපි ගෝපියන්ට කියන වගා කරන්න කියලා. මේ වගා කරන්න කියන ගමන්ම ඔවුන් පාරම්පරික වගා කරපු ඉඩම් අපි මේවා කැලෑ කියලා ගල් දානවා. ඒ අයට ඔප්පු දෙන්නේ නැහැ. අපි කියනවා කිරි ගොවියන්ට වැඩි කරන්න කියලා කිරි. හැබැයි හරක් ටිකට තනකොළ කන්න කැලෑවකට යන්න දෙන්නේ නැහැ. නීති තියෙන්නට පුළුවන්. හැබැයි නීති ක්‍රියාත්මක කරනකොට අපි බලන්න ඕන ඒකම කොහොමද ජනතාවගේ අවශ්‍යතාවයන් ඉටු කරන්න කියලා. එක නිලධාරියෙක් කියනවා වගා කරන්න කියලා. අනිත් නිලධාරියා කියනවා නම් මේ ප්‍රදේශයට ඇතුල් වෙන්න බෑයි කියලා. තවත් නිලධාරියෙක් කියනවා නම් හරක් නිසා පසබුරුල් වෙලා කාදනය ඇති වෙනවයි කියලා. මෙතන තමයි ප්‍රශ්නේ තියෙන්නේ. අපි මහජන නිලධාරීන් හැටියට වඩාත් වැදගත් වෙන්නේ ජනතාව අතරට ගිහිල්ලා ගමට ගිහිල්ලා මේ ගමේ ප්‍රශ්න විසඳලා දෙන එක.
Now, Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit, warned officials responsible for the granting of lands within the Muthurajawala wetland for a tourism project to follow the laws of the land or be sent home. Now, the Cardinal also called the project to be scrapped to prevent massive damage to biodiversity in the area, which could also affect the livelihoods of hundreds of local residents who depend on the Negombo Lagoon for their livelihoods.
මුතුරාජවෙල කියන තෙත් භූමිය ඒක මහා ප්‍රමාණයේ සංචාරක වැඩපිළිවෙලක් සඳහා යොදා ගන්නට සැලසුම් සකස් කරගෙන මේක එක්තරා සමාගමක් ඒ අතට අරගෙන එය රජයේ ඉඩමක් වුණත් එය තමන් සතු කරගෙන එහි බහුකාර්ය වැඩපිළිවෙලක් දියත් කරන්නට බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. වනජීවියකට යටත් වෙලා තිබිච්ච මේ මුතුරාජවෙල එකපාර පුද්ගලික සමාගමකට අයිති පුද්ගලික දේපලක් වුණේ කොහොමද කියන ප්‍රශ්නයක් තියෙනවා. ඒකෙදි අපිට දැනගන්නට ලැබුණා ගොවි ජන සේවා දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවේ මේ ගම්පහ කාර්යාලය හරහා යම්කිසි මුදලක් ගෙවලා ඉඩම් අක්කර 700ක් වෙන් කරගෙන තියෙනවා කියලා මේ වැඩපිළිවෙලට. එක්තරා සමාගමක්. එවැනි දෙයක් සිදු වුණොත් ගංවතුර බුදුරක් එන්න ඉඩ තියෙනවා ගම්පහ දිස්ත්‍රික්කයට. ඒ නිසා මේ සියල්ලම සලකා බලද්දී මේකෙන් ලැබෙන දියුණුවක් නැහැ. මේකෙන් වෙන්නේ ජනතාවගේ ජන ජීවිතය සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම අවුල් වීම. ඒ නිසා අපි මේ ව්‍යාපෘතියට විරුද්ධයි. මේක කරන්න දෙන්න බෑ. මේක කරන්න දෙන්නෙත් නැහැ. රටක පාලකයන්ටවත් ආර්ථිකයේ මෙහෙවන සමාගම් වලටවත් විදේශීය බලවේග වලටවත් අයිති නෑ මේ රට. ඒ නිසා කරුණා කරලා ඔය දූෂිත නිලධාරීන් සහ ඒ අංශ පාලනය කරන ඒ දෙපාර්තමේන්තු වල අය කරුණා කරලා මේ ටිකට සමන් දෙන්න. අපේ ජන ජීවිතය අවුල් කරන්න එන්න එපා. ඔයාලා ඔයාලගේ යුතුයකම් ඉෂ්ට කරන්න රටේ නීති රීති වලට අනුව. එතනින් එහාට එන්න આવොත් ඕගලන්ට පාරට බහින්න වෙනවා. ඕගලන්ටත් ගෙදර යන්න වෙනවා. මීගමු කලපුවේ මත්ස්‍ය ජනනය වෙන්නේ තරහ විදියකට මේ පෝෂදායි අඩොලාන ඒව වර්ධනය වෙලා ඒ තුලින් හැදෙන ආහාර වලින් තමයි මේ මත්ස්‍යයන් ලැබෙන්නේ මේ පෝෂණය. මේක වුණොත් මුළු කලපුවම වේලෙන්න පුළුවන්. ඉස්සන් ඇති කරන අයට වෙනත් රැකියාවල් කරන අයට මේ කලපුවෙන් වැඩක් නැතුව යනවා. බොහෝ දෙනෙකුට දිලිඳුකම හිඟා කෑමේ තත්ත්වයට වැටෙන්න සිද්ධ වෙනවා. ඒ නිසා ස්වභාව ධර්මයෙන් හදලා තියෙන මේ ජෛව පද්ධතිය කරුණාකරලා විනාශ කරන්න එපා.
Former Ambassador to Russia, Udanga Veeratunga, says that the public should not be fearful of Ukrainian tourists arriving in the country as there are fewer COVID-19 positive cases among the tour groups than in local society. He added that the Sri Lankan government hopes to get the green light from health authorities to continue with the pilot project until the end of April, which marks the end of the winter season in Europe. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka's fifth batch of Ukrainian tourists arrived in the country today.
Under Sri Lanka's pilot project to reopen its borders for tourism, the fifth batch of Ukrainian tourists arrived today. A group of 192 tourists from Ukraine's capital Kyiv arrived at the Mattala Rajapaksa International Airport. So far, 755 Ukrainian tourists have arrived in the country since the beginning of the pilot project on the 28th of December. In the meantime, 202 Ukrainian tourists left Sri Lanka today after completing their holiday. The Department of Immigration and Emigration stated that visas will continue to be issued to tourists arriving the country for 30 days stay. Meanwhile, former Sri Lankan ambassador to Russia, Udanga Veeratunga, stated at a press conference held yesterday that 99% of Ukrainian tourists visiting the island are free of COVID-19.
ඒ සංචාරකයන් අද පැමිණලා සිටින ප්‍රමාණය අපි ගණන් හැදුවොතින් දෙන්නෙක් පමණයි ආසාදිත රෝග ලක්ෂණ පෙන්වන්නේ. නිකන් අපි ලංකාවේ යම්කිසි තැනක අහඹු ලෙස ගත්තොතින් 644ක් සමහර විට දෙන්නෙකුට වැඩි ඉන්න පුළුවන්. එහෙමනම් ඔක්කොම නිරෝධානය වෙන්න ඕනේ. එහෙනම් ඒ ලංකාවේ ඉන්න හැමෝටම බය ඉන්න ඕනේ කෙනෙක්ට. ඒක පිළිගන්න බෑ. මේගොල්ලෝ 99.9ක් කොරෝනා ආසාදිතයන් නෙමෙයි.
මේ සංචාරක බුබුල සඳහා ඇයි යුක්‍රේන් රාජ්‍යම තෝරාගත්තේ?
ඇත්තටම පළවෙනි ගුවන් යානා සූදානම් කරලා තිබුණේ රුසියාව සමූහාණ්ඩුවේ. නමුත් මේ ගයිඩ්ලයින්ස් වලට කැමති වෙලා එන්න කැමති වෙන්නේ නැහැ ගොඩක් සංචාරකයෝ. ඉතින් නමුත් මට ලොකු විශ්වාසයක් තිබුණා මට යුක්‍රේන් රාජ්‍යයෙන් ආවොත් ඒ වගේ තත්ත්වයක් උදා නොවි අපිට මේ කටයුත්ත කරන්න පුළුවන් කියලා. මේ සාර්ථක වුණොත් ඉදිරියටත් යම් යම් අඩුපාඩු තියෙනවා. අපිට ඕන මේ වින්ටර් සීසන් එක ඉවරනකම්. ඒ කියන්නේ අප්‍රේල් අන්තිම වෙනකම් මේක ගෙනියන්න ඒගොල්ලොන්ගේ එකඟතාවය ලබා ගන්න.
In another development, the Director General of Health Services today issued a series of health guidelines that must be followed by tourists visiting the island after the reopening of the Katunayake airport on January 21. According to the guidelines, applying for visas must be done online, while a negative PCR test report obtained 96 hours before boarding must be submitted.
Following the arrest of the 4 former directors of ETI Finance yesterday, the Colombo Magistrate Court ordered all suspects be released on 2 million rupees personal bail and also ordered their passports be surrendered. Colombo Fort Magistrate Priyantha Liyanage stated that bail was granted as the court was not fully satisfied with allegations presented by the plaintiffs.
The 4 former directors of ETI Finance were produced before the Colombo Fort Magistrates Court yesterday. During the proceedings, Deputy Solicitor General Dilip Piris, representing the CID, told the court that Swarna Mahal Jewellers had been registered as a company as a jewellery retailer but had received 7.2 billion rupees in cash deposits from depositors across the country. The Deputy Solicitor General pointed out to court that this was done by publishing mini advertisements in weekend newspapers without the central bank's permission. He added that the cash deposits received in response to these advertisements had then disappeared. Deputy Solicitor General Piris added that the suspects had used the money to buy property in foreign countries and had used more funds for personal entertainment in Sri Lanka. The Deputy Solicitor General also revealed several facts regarding Nalaka Edirisinghe's arrest, who later surrendered to the CID through his lawyers. He revealed that when the investigating officers arrived at Nalaka Edirisinghe's house, the gate was shut, forcing the investigators to climb over the wall. The Deputy Solicitor General added that even though the charges were bailable offences, he strongly objected to the release of the suspects. Deputy Solicitor General Piris also told court that an example must be set by denying the suspects' bail requests. Appearing on behalf of the defendants, President's counsel Anuja Premaratne said that justice was not delivered by the remanding of his clients and added that they had not avoided court proceedings in any way. After considering the submissions made by both parties, Colombo Fort Magistrate Priyantha Liyanage ordered that the suspects be granted conditional bail as the court was not satisfied with the allegations made by the plaintiffs. Accordingly, each suspect was ordered to be released on 2 million rupees personal bail and their passports were ordered to be surrendered to court.
Welcome back. The all share price index gained 61.08 points while the S&P SL 20 of more liquid stocks fell 10.63 in a day of high activity and a massive market turnover of over 9 billion rupees. The market also saw over 40,000 transactions throughout the day, with a majority of activity attributed to local participation. Here's today's market report.
The overall market turnover has been one of the highest in the recent past and has been on a rising trend. Earlier we've seen turnover levels of 2 to 3 billion on average. Now over the last few days it has grown from that levels to 4 billion to 6 billion and now exceeding 9 billion rupees. And if you take the overall market activity, the number of transactions has exceeded 40,000 transactions. So you can see that it is a completely retail dominated market. With the low interest rate environment, we are seeing a significant flow of funds into the stock market. On the foreign side, the activity has been extremely low because of this high level of retail participation that has been there in the market.
Now the rupee closed firmer at 188.50 to 189.50 against the US dollar today, after closing at 191 to 192 against the greenback yesterday. Let's take a look at how the Sri Lankan rupee traded against other major currencies of the world during the day. Taking you to the United States, the House of Congress was left in a state of disarray after supporters of President Donald Trump stormed the debate on Republican challenges to his presidential election defeat yesterday. Hundreds of armed Trump supporters gathered in the Capitol after Trump continued to accuse Democrats of using voter fraud to deny him his re-election. Now, the ensuing riot resulted in the death of 4 Trump supporters while attempting to storm the Congress building guarded by Washington, D.C. police.
President Donald Trump's reluctance to accept defeat in the presidential election and transfer of power peacefully has turned the usually peaceful U.S. Capitol into something resembling a war zone. Supporters of President Trump staged a protest yesterday as the debate to confirm the victory of US President-elect Joe Biden was taking place inside the Capitol building in Washington. According to foreign media reports, armed protesters entered the Capitol building by force and tried to take control of the proceedings.
Oath keepers.
The police were forced to use rubber bullets and tear gas to control the situation after President Trump's supporters began behaving violently. Police personnel managed to bring the situation under control. However, 4 protesters, including one woman, died during the riot. DC police also arrested over 50 protesters during the incident. President Trump has since his defeat alleged mass voter fraud and called on his supporters to rise up against it. This led Facebook and Twitter to temporarily block President Trump's accounts for making misleading statements in such a context. So far, Democrat President-elect Joe Biden has been declared the victor in the states of Georgia, Pennsylvania, Nevada, Michigan and Arizona. However, a debate was held in Congress yesterday on the Republican Party challenges to the declarations. Following the mass riot, the meeting resumed after the police intervened and removed protesters from the chamber of the Capitol building. With that, Vice President Mike Pence criticized the protesters' behavior after the resumption of congressional proceedings under tight security. Thus, following the debate today, Congress decided to dismiss all objections preventing the electoral colleges from releasing the final results. Following this, President-elect Joe Biden, in a statement, called the riot not just a protest, but a rebellion.
And with that, we wrap up tonight's edition of First at 9 on AdaDerana 24. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.